Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this episode, first I gotta ask two questions. When you think of the world of Sasquatch or Bigfoot, what are some names or faces in association with the phenomena that immediately pop into your head? I'll give you a second. For starters, we have Jeff Meldrum, Bernard Heuvelmans, John Green, Ivan Sanderson, Grover Krantz, John Bindernagel, Patterson and Gimlin, Swindler and Sarmiento. And those are just a few that came to my mind. Now, when you think of the paranormal possessions and demonic hauntings, what modern pair of individuals comes to mind there? That's right, Ed and Lorraine Warren. Well, they popped into my head, so for the sake of the video and the story behind it, let's just go with the two of them. Ed and Lorraine were responsible for some of the most high-profile investigations on record. The Enfield poltergeist, Annabelle, the haunted doll, the Snedeker family haunting. Those are just a few of them, but they would claim to have investigated around 10,000 cases over the course of their careers, looking into hauntings, cursed objects, and demonic possessions. They've written plenty of books and opened the well-known Warren Occult Museum. And of course, the famous blockbuster The Conjuring series was loosely based off of their investigations. Whether you believe they were frauds or not, which many people do, there's no denying that Ed and Lorraine Warren have made an amazing mark upon the paranormal world. But what does this famous pair, known for their paranormal and demonic escapades, have anything to do with the world of Bigfoot? Well, apparently, they investigated and found him. The book Ghost Hunters, written by the Warrens and David Chase, tells the interesting tale. It began when a news reporter contacted the Warrens, telling them that something roaming the Tennessee woods had been terrorizing scared locals living in a poor area out in the middle of nowhere. They also claimed to have identified the beast that was tormenting them, Bigfoot. Now, Tennessee is already a big hotspot for Sasquatch encounters, as it were. The Warrens also never had an interest in the hairy giant before. On this occasion, though, something changed. Lorraine Warren would later say, "We had never paid much attention to stories about Bigfoot. I wouldn't say that we dismissed them as fictitious, but Bigfoot didn't just hold much interest for psychic investigators. That changed one spring when we were lecturing in Tennessee, and a reporter from the Elk Valley Times contacted us and told us about some hill people who kept insisting that something was threatening their children." The Warrens decided to head out to investigate, and a strange, bizarre series of events began to unfold. They arrived in the forested, out-of-the-way hill country to find the area of the terrified witnesses. The area was described as not much more than a gathering of small, flimsy shacks without any running water, and the only thing they had in the way of electricity was one long string of lights that wound its way through the community. Lorraine felt awful about their living situation and apparent poverty, so she decided to spend the day gathering reports and interviewing them about exactly what they had been seeing. One resident had said that the day before the beast came from behind a tree and tried to kidnap a 2-year-old child until it was ran off by the men of the camp using improvised weapons. It was clear the camp was obviously scared of whatever it was that came from the woods. Now, the Warrens didn't really subscribe to the idea that Bigfoot was a living, breathing, undiscovered bipedal ape stalking the woods and terrorizing the locals per se, but they could tell that the people were obviously afraid of something, and they believed the residents in what they said they saw. They soon decided on investigating the surrounding area of dense wilderness the next day. The area around them was described as vast hills and forests so impenetrable they seemed beyond the reach of civilization. The next day, the Warrens headed out and spent most of the day slowly ambling through the thick brush until they found a clearing at around 4:30 p.m. or so. The thing that stood out to them immediately was that something had smashed down the tall grass. And it was here that the story takes an even stranger turn. While staying in the clearing, Lorraine Warren would claim to have seen the monster for herself, and made telepathic contact. In their book Ghost Hunters, the creature was described. He did, in fact, appear to be a fusion of man and ape, a tall, slope-shouldered animal with very long arms that were covered with almost shaggy hair. His face was flat with a protruding bony shelf above the eyes. Two things about him were especially disturbing. First, his eyes, which shone with intelligence, compassion, and fear. Second, his ability to project images telepathically into Lorraine's mind. No so-called dumb animal is able to accomplish such projections. Lorraine instantly knew she was dealing with a creature who, despite his fearsome and ugly appearance, was not the prehistoric beast most people assumed him to be. The creature was claimed to have beamed emotions and images directly into Lorraine's head, like a projector onto a screen. She saw images of it standing in a cave by a river with what she felt was its family, and images of its own injured foot, which she felt was the thing that was keeping it from seeing its family again. She felt also waves of sadness, loneliness, and isolation, and the reason behind the attack on the 2-year-old child was just it wanting to communicate with it, not to harm it. To her, it seemed terrified and skittish around humans as a whole. When the other members of the investigation team saw her in her trance-like state, they approached only to be told to stay back by Lorraine, who said that she was in telepathic communication with the creature they were looking for. As the team backed off, she moved forward towards the beast, smelling a foul odor as she crept. She said they had a gentle and peaceful exchange of mental images until a bullhorn suddenly sounded off from somewhere behind them. Then the startled beast retreated in terror. Lorraine would claim that she would sense the pain in its foot as it fled, and see the blood in her mind's eye. And then the psychic link, as well as the creature, were gone. After the exchange was over, they continued to search the area and didn't find the creature itself, but they managed to find a series of huge footprints, as well as a trail of blood, which led them to the edge of a cliff. Lorraine would have no more psychic communication that day, and it seemed as if the creature itself simply vanished into the forest. While Lorraine's encounter was certainly fantastical, it, for the most part, fits in line with Sasquatch sightings all around the US, and while not widely accepted, the telepathic communication is surprisingly common in certain Bigfoot circles. After the event, Ed Warren would speculate that Sasquatch wasn't a missing link or large bipedal American ape at all, but what's known as a tulpa, Tibetan for thought form. The concept originally comes from Tibetan Buddhism and basically involves a visible construct built entirely from the mind and belief of human beings. It's basically willed into being. With enough will and belief, they're even said to be able to take on a life of their own, becoming sort of an independent apparition that can exist apart from its creators and can be seen and even interact with the world around them. Ed Warren would explain it a little more ominously and link it to other strange phenomena, writing, "They're called tulpas, physical manifestations that are in fact projections of the mind. They are creatures of black magic as practiced throughout the world, but mostly by the monks in Tibet. It is my belief that Bigfoot is a tulpa, a mind projection. So is the Loch Ness Monster and many other now you see it and now you don't creatures that get reported in the press. Someone who is practicing black magic projects such creatures and we see them. This could also account for unidentified flying objects." Now I want to note that Ed Warren insinuates that tulpas are in direct relation to black magic, or witchcraft, of which, in its own lore, there isn't any association whatsoever. Supposedly, it's just the power of will that creates a golem, if you will, in the real physical world, not the result of a ritual or magics at all. But according to him, there's a connection, so maybe I'm wrong. Tulpas have indeed been connected to a variety of strange happenings, including Sasquatch reports. So, in the end, it's really about what you believe. So was this whole event caused by a mind-created Sasquatch-like being? an actual flesh and blood creature are all a bunch of malarkey. It's a shame that over the years the Warrens have been increasingly called frauds and hacks, with many of the cases being very much embellished or called outright fake from the get-go. Attention grabbers and headline makers. But this is still one of the many cases purported to have happened in their long and storied career. Besides, whatever you believe, it's still fun to imagine the two investigators and demonologists climbing and hacking their way through the bush in search of a big American hairy legend like Sasquatch researchers do every day. It's a fun thought, a good story, and a meeting of two subjects on total ends of the paranormal spectrum, with two famous investigators, smack dab right in the middle. Hey everybody, if you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more Unknown Files here on Unknown Territory. And most importantly, thanks for watching.